Hi, I'm Jeremy, the Zoo Nerd, coming to you live from my backyard in Los Angeles, California. How's everyone doing today? I hope you're well, I hope you're happy, healthy, and having some fun. Today in Critter Chat, we're going to talk about a very beautiful animal called the clouded leopard. Today is International Clouded Leopard Day. It was created 3 years ago to help raise awareness about these beautiful cats and hopefully help get more people involved in the conservation efforts and to stop some of the illegal poaching and habitat destruction that is threatening them. For about 160 years, it was thought that clouded leopards all belong to one species. And then in about 2006, after significant scientific research, genetic testing, and other studies, it was decided that there are in fact two completely different species of clouded leopards. And the clouded leopards that live on two very large islands, Borneo and Sumatra, were classified as a separate species called the Sunda clouded leopard. They're a bit darker in color throughout their coat, and they also have longer canines. Canines are those very big teeth that cats have. They're fangs that help them to eat a lot of food. And the Sunda species of clouded leopards actually have bigger canines than their mainland cousins. Because of that, they were reclassified into two separate species, the Sunda and then the mainland clouded leopard. Both species are listed as vulnerable today, vulnerable for extinction, and they both have decreasing populations. That means things are getting worse, not better for them. Vulnerable is not super scary. It's not nearly as bad as endangered, nor critically endangered. So there's still a lot of help that can happen, and there's still a lot more that we need to learn about these crazy, beautiful cats. The mainland species lives throughout the countries of kind of southern and southeast Asia, Bangladesh, Bhutan, Cambodia, a bit into China, India, Laos, Malaysia, Myanmar, Nepal, Thailand, and Vietnam. They also used to live on the island of Taiwan, but they are extinct on that island. They no longer live there. So it's been a population of species that has declined in modern times, and unfortunately they have lost their fight for survival on the island of Taiwan, which is a decent sized island. The Sunda species of clouded leopard lives in 3 countries, Brunei, Indonesia, and Malaysia, with Indonesia occupying most of that space on those islands. Clouded leopards live in forests. They can occasionally be seen in like wetlands and sometimes in kind of some more scrub or grassland kind of areas, but they really prefer to be in forest. And the scientific research that has been done well documents that that is where they would prefer to spend their time. That is where they're better adapted to live, and that is where most of their prey species live. Now, those forests throughout much of that range include rainforest, but also sometimes some drier forests where they don't have rain for a large portion of the year, and also some forest up into the mountains areas, particularly right around the Himalayas in Nepal, Bhutan, and northern India, parts of China. They have been spotted at very high elevations, up to 9,000 feet above sea level, which is pretty remarkable. They didn't think they lived that high previously, so that's kind of newer research as well. In areas with other large cats, specifically leopards and tigers, if those bigger cats are around, then the clouded leopards, which are not specifically a leopard, they are their own species, then clouded leopards tend to be more arboreal or spend more time up in the trees. On the island of Borneo, which is a huge island, and there are not tigers nor leopards, clouded leopards tend to be more on the ground, and they also live at a denser population. There are more of them in smaller amounts of space on Borneo than throughout the rest of their home range. Clouded leopards are medium-sized cats. In length, body length, they can be between 26 to 42 inches, so right around 2 feet in length to up to almost 4 feet in length. They are between 10 to 16 inches tall at the shoulder, so they're kind of short in reality. Their legs are pretty short compared to other cats that kind of are in their same weight range. They have pretty short legs. Females tend to weigh between 22 and 30 pounds, while the males are significantly larger, weighing in at 44 to 55 pounds. They actually have the largest size difference between genders, between males and females, of any member of the cat family, which has created some unique and interesting problems at times. Their tails are also super long. Their tails range between 24 inches up to 33 inches, so between 2 and 3 feet in length, with the cat only being about that same length. So for a cat their size, they have very, very long tails, and their tails really help them to balance, especially as they're up in trees and walking along branches or jumping from one tree to another. Their tail can kind of help control their movement and help them to balance really well. With clouded leopards, their canine teeth, so those big fangs, both top and bottom jaw, are the longest proportionately of any feline. A clouded leopard's canine teeth is almost 2 inches in length, which is almost as big as a tiger's tooth, even though a tiger is a much, much bigger animal. With that, I created some interesting scientific theory that clouded leopards may be one of the closest species related to the saber-toothed cats of the Ice Age time frame. They're still doing some research on that, and they haven't totally figured out any scientific conclusions that point that to be true, although they think that there's a likely correspondence there. With clouded leopards, they can also open their mouth wider than any other cats. They can open their mouth 100 degrees, which is pretty impressive, and that gives them a pretty unique ability. Even though they're kind of a medium-sized cat, they are able to hunt animals significantly larger than them, including deer species and some of the forest pig species of Southeast Asia, kind of by being up in a tree, dropping down onto those bigger animals, using those big teeth and that big mouth to open up wide to kill their prey. It makes them very efficient hunters, and they will eat a wide variety of different things. So they'll feed on several types of deer and other like forest antelope kind of species, as well as primates, monkeys, sometimes some other primates like some lorises and some gibbons. We'll talk about both those species in future critter chats. And also other small to mid-sized animals, so things like squirrels, maybe some rabbits, and occasionally some birds. But when they hunt things like monkeys, they do that during the daytime. Throughout most of their range, they tend to be more nocturnal, but if they're specifically trying to hunt a monkey, they will switch to more of a daytime schedule, or at least crepuscular, being active in the morning and the afternoon, to kind of hunt those animals that are a little more active during the daytime. With clouded leopards, their gestation period or their pregnancy is between 85 and 93 days, so right around 3 months. They can have anywhere between 1 up to 5 cubs, with 2 being the most common, occasionally 3, but 2 is definitely the most common. Like all cats, their babies are born with closed eyes, no teeth, pretty helpless, don't really walk. And then at about 2 weeks, their eyes open. In about 3 weeks, they start to grow teeth and move around a little bit more. And then they'll still nurse from their mom for about 2-3 months till they're about between 10 and 12 weeks old. And then they'll start to eat more and more solid food. They learn to hunt with her. And then they can be independent or fully living on their own by about 1.5 years old. In the wild, they can live to be about 12 years old, and then in a zoo setting, more later teens, so like 15 to 17 years old tends to be a little more common in a zoo setting. Again, they're not hunting animals that fight back. They're not having to compete for food. They get medical care if they get sick or injured, and all of that helps them to live a little longer in a zoo setting. With clouded leopards, I did mention that the males are much larger than the females. That unfortunately does not always work out so well. They can be very aggressive when they meet each other, and they found that in zoo settings that sometimes can cause injury and even death between the male and the female, usually with the female losing out on that. Because of that, they've had to do some really fine-tuning of how they deal with cats in a zoo setting, which is pretty interesting and really quite unusual for clouded leopards. They usually raise the cubs by keepers. They found that they also had a high infant mortality in zoos, and so most clouded leopards born in US zoos are raised by people, and then they get paired with a potential mate when they are still cubs, and then they kind of grow up together. And when it becomes time to breeding, they're usually able to breed more successfully without injury or death for the female cat if they've known each other for a long time, which has created some interesting opportunities in US zoos. Also, they use clouded leopards sometimes as animal ambassadors or education animals that can go on to news stations or perform in like a show or demonstration. Because clouded leopards can also do some really crazy stuff. They're one of the few cats that can walk down a tree head first, similar to the binturons that we talked about a while back in Critter Chat. Clouded leopards can rotate their back feet, their ankles, to be kind of in an up position with those big sharp claws holding on to the tree as they come down a tree. That allows them to grip really well as they're climbing, and allows them to come down head first. I've seen a clouded leopard do this at a zoo. Super, super cool to be able to see them maneuver so well. They're also really, really good at walking through branches and jumping from trees. I'll see if I can find some video to share on the Facebook page later about that. With clouded leopards, because they are so secretive and they're very, very stealthy out in their dense rainforest home, much of the information we know about them comes from animals in zoos, which is kind of a unique look into some of the work that zoos do. Aside from helping people learn about animals, there's often a lot of scientific research being done kind of behind the scenes or out of the spotlight at zoos. And clouded leopards are a really important species for that, where the scientific community has learned a significant amount about this species through zoo animals. Here in the United States, also in Europe and in Asia. With clouded leopards, like I mentioned earlier, they are both listed as vulnerable, both species. That they suffer from many of the same threats that we've talked about with other rainforest animals, with habitat loss and habitat fragmentation being a huge problem. Specifically in Southeast Asia, many of those rainforests are being cut down for the wood that grows there, or to clear the land for agriculture, with the biggest culprit being palm oil. We talked about palm oil a little bit last week. We've talked about it before when we talked about orangutans. So there's lots of good information out there about how you can help in your purchase choices with palm oil. Palm oil is an ingredient in a lot of foods, especially snack foods, and also in cosmetics and toiletries. So by making sure you purchase products that are using sustainably harvested palm oil is a very good way that you can help out. The Cheyenne Mountain Zoo in Colorado Springs are the experts in the world on sustainable palm oil. They have developed an app for your phone called Sustainable Palm Oil app that helps you understand what buying power you have as a consumer to buy those products and help make a difference. So you can download that app on both Android or Apple platforms and get that information to help you as you're shopping. Clouded leopards also suffer from hunting and poaching. That's a huge part of the problem, kind of more on the mainland side of things with the clouded leopards, as many of them are trapped in snares or hunted or captured for a wide variety of reasons. One, their beautiful coat is still sometimes traded and used, sold in markets. Although they are protected in most of their countries where they live, they are still illegally hunted in huge numbers. Different parts of their bodies are also used in traditional Chinese or Asian medicines, which have very little medicinal value to them. It is believed that different body parts of wild animals can help cure different diseases and ailments in human populations. There is little to no scientific proof that that actually works, but they are one of the animals that suffer from that a lot. They are also sometimes eaten in parts of their range, and that is something that is also a problem. With that, there are some organizations trying to do some really good things. One is called the Clouded Leopard Project. They are a special shout out today. I'll be sharing some of their information later on today of some of the good work that they are doing. As well as they do have a nice population in zoos, and they figured out the quirks of their reproductive. And in the last few years in the US, they've done very well with their breeding program. So that is some good news as well. With my experiences in dealing with clouded leopards are very, very limited. I've never actually worked at a zoo where clouded leopards have been part of the animal population. I have seen clouded leopards at multiple zoos in the US. I'm always excited when I do because it's an animal I haven't spent a lot of time observing or watching. So when I see a clouded leopard around, I am usually very excited, especially if it's awake and moving about. There's some really great footage from a lot of zoos happening today because it is International Clouded Leopard Day. I shared some of those posts on Instagram, on the Instagram stories. I'll be sharing more on the Zoo Nerd Facebook page later on today, so make sure you check that out. As always, feel free to like, share, follow, and subscribe to all of my content across Instagram, YouTube, Facebook, and on my website at jeremythezoonerd.com. That's what I have to share with you today about clouded leopards. I hope you've learned some things. I hope you've enjoyed what I've shared, and I hope you're having some fun. So until tomorrow, be happy, be healthy, stay safe. See you later.